So you should wind up with the front axle that looks like this, or front handle, right? So both axles are in, grubbed in, looks good. So now we can move on to the rears. All right. So here's the rear hanger axles, right? Similar in design to the fronts, right? But they don't have flats on the back. There's a good reason for that. We want to make sure that these guys have a good alignment from side to side, right? So the reason why we don't want flats is because each surf rod axle or hanger is unique, and if we rely on flats that are standardized across these axles, then what'll happen is that the hangers, as they go across the hanger, they won't be in alignment. So we want to make sure that we get them into alignment, and that's the whole purpose for these index rings. The index ring allows us to not have to use a rub screw, right? And we can just go ahead, mount the index ring, shim it, and then screw the hanger axle on, and we're good to go. So I'll show you how that works now. So first, we got to take our surf rods. Oh, sorry about all this shit. We got to take our surf rods hanger and pull the grub screws out of it. And this is fairly straightforward, of course, because it's super easy. And very good. So the next piece is to actually measure up our surf rods hangers. So this is where the shims come in and why we're going to need them, right? So if I measure these guys, mine come in at 18.09 millimeters, right? So 18.1. Let's just round it up to the 10th digit, or round it down, whatever you get. We want to go to a 10th, right? So these index rings, the inside from here to here is 18.25 millimeters. So I have to make up 0.15 millimeters with a shim. Now I have these 0.006 inch shims that I've made, and that's approximately 0.15 millimeters. So that's good for this particular index ring and this hanger. So I'll show you how to first take this shim and form it, and then we'll install it onto the hanger itself. So we're going to take that shim and place it in the index ring so that it is flush to the back of the index ring, right? Just like that. And then we're going to press this excess off the front. We're going to press it into a right angle. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just have a nice little bend there. One is good enough. You can see I wasn't able to get it into a perfect right angle. That's fine. It's not the end of the world. What matters is that we establish that edge. Okay, so then we're going to go ahead and insert the index ring and the shim onto the hanger. Okay, so sorry, I'm trying to do this with two hands and just it's impossible. So here's the shim that we just bent. We're going to insert it. God damn it. How is this possible? Shit. So I can't show you how to actually physically insert this because I'd need two more hands or some sort of camera rig. But so there's the shim that's inserted between the hanger and the index ring. Now the next step is to go ahead and screw in the actual axle. All right. So there we go. It's screwed in, right, all the way to the end. And now we're just going to take this index ring and slide it forward. Okay. And what that does is it pinches the the shim between the index ring and the hanger mount. So now we just got to make sure that our holes are lined up, right? So how do we do that? We're going to actually unscrew the the hanger mount just a little bit in order to make sure that our um, index ring matches up with the holes. Okay, so now you can kind of see that the holes are lined up. Every other one shows, right? And if we flip this, you can kind of see through the index, through the mount, in through the index ring to my fingers there. Okay, so that's lined up. So the next step would be to go ahead and insert a couple of screws, M4 by 20 millimeter. Okay, so there we go. Two screws opposite one another into the hanger through the index plate. Okay, so it occupies two of those holes, one opposite the other, 180 degrees apart, so they should be nice and strong. We shouldn't have any play in this hanger, or in this axle, because of the index ring and because of that shim that keeps everything locked to the hanger. Okay, so at this point, what you can do if you don't want to use the index ring, right? So the index ring will go ahead and give you the alignment, but if you want to omit it, you can certainly go ahead and do that. This is why we didn't go ahead and have those flats milled onto the axles, because now we can go ahead and customize this hanger so that it will be indexed to exactly this point with a either a drilled cup into the hanger itself, or we can put a flat spot on there. So how would we go ahead and do that? Well, we'd go ahead and put our grub screw back in and mark the hanger that way. All right, I might have skipped a step here, but once you mark the axle, you can go ahead and take it over to a drill press and drill out with, let's say, a M6 or a 1/4 inch drill bit, a divot into the axle, exactly where you want it to be, and then remount it into the hanger and put a grub screw in and have that grub screw go straight down into that hole, and that axle is not going to move. So that's one way, or you could just use a regular old file and file away a spot, a nice flat spot, and have that too. But the drill out method is probably a little bit better than just putting a flat on there. So let's talk about TKPs for a second. How would we form this shim onto a TKP? Well, the first thing to do is to take this guy. Should be square, but it might not be. It's okay. But we're going to take this and take it and put it down the center line of this hanger and bend it to the center line. So you're basically just putting like a small bend in the center. And then once that's established, we're going to bend this a little bit more. So just the only word caution here is that these shims are really thin and they're sharp. Just be careful when you're bending these by hand. They can and want to cut you. So just be careful. If you want, wear a pair of gloves, or some other, do it by maybe, I don't know, you might be able to bend it on a more 90-degree surface and bend it that way instead of trying to do it against this hex surface. But we want to put a line right down the middle of this shim. So you can see it's kind of bent into about 90-degree shape. So then we're going to take this, wow, old home videos in the background, fun times. So we're going to take this guy and put him onto here. Of course, it's impossible to do one-handed. And we're going to bring this guy out. And that should not go over. You can kind of see how it's not going over the edge of that next hex point, or the face, right? We don't want it to extend past that face. I mean, it can, but we don't want it to if it doesn't want to. So that looks pretty good, pretty centered. So the next step is we're going to go ahead and take this part and put it into the index ring and make a cut with a pair of scissors right down that edge that we made in the middle. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use this index ring to establish how much of this we want to go ahead and cut away. So place the shim into the index ring, hold it there, and then trim away, or not trim away, but cut a slice right down that mark that we made earlier, that we folded. Okay, you can see I've made a cut here. If you want to, you can make a little bit of a V cut here to cut that center slot out to make get to like unbent metal. I'll do that. Okay, so you can see I've taken a bit of a V out of this. Now we've got to go ahead and take this and fold this shim backwards on each side here so that it can be sandwiched between the index ring and the hanger. Focus. There we go. So probably the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and do it right against the edge of a table. So you get two nice little flaps that come up at focus. There we go. Come up, not necessarily at 90 degrees, but close to it, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, just a little bit of an offset. Now we're going to go ahead and install this into the index ring and onto the hanger, and then we're going to go ahead and screw the axle in. So there we go. This guy's installed. Now it doesn't look like it's all the way on, but this is about as much on as we need it to be. It doesn't have to be like super like inserted all the way down the axle or any of that, or the hanger. No, just enough to hold it. Okay. And what we're going to do now is we're going to install the hanger axle, or the axle, and go ahead and then use the index plate to tighten it up. Okay, so there we go. We've pressed or screwed the axle in to the hanger and pressed that shim, sandwiched it between the axle and the index ring. The index ring doesn't want to move relative to the hanger. We can see that we have holes aligned all the way around. So now we can go ahead and put a couple of screws back into this and it'll be done. Okay, so that's it. There's the axle and the hanger and the index plate all lined up, ready to go. Now if we wanted to go ahead and again add a grub screw here for insurance, we could. We certainly could. I mean, is it a good idea? Probably. Why not, right? So at this point, once everything's lined up and the hanger and the axle and the index plate are lined up, you could go ahead and again install a grub screw here and then disassemble the whole thing, add a flat, and then go ahead, reassemble it, and then put a grub screw back in. Yeah, super simple. Well, maybe not super simple, but pretty straightforward. Anyway, let me know if you have any questions or parts that were totally unclear. My battery's about to die, so this is going to have to be it. All right, bye.